Welcome, everybody. This is Windows 7, AppLocker and Bitlocker to go, configuration and deployment for the enterprise. I'm Jeremy Moskowitz, Group Policy MVP from the US, and this is...
I'm Alan Birchall. I'm also a Group Policy MVP. So it means you have 20% of the world's Group Policy MVPs on the stage right now. Ooh. Hi. I'm not from the US. I'm from Australia, specifically from Brisbane. So I'm really excited to be here.
Woohoo!
And we're going to show you some really good stuff with Windows 7 today. Okay, AppLocker, Bitlocker, two features in Windows 7, great for security, do completely different things, but really good features in Windows 7 that you should look at implementing in your environment, or maybe one or the other.
And yeah, I think that's actually a key point, is that you can do what we're going to show you either completely separate, like I love Bitlocker, I want to do that today. I love AppLocker, I want to do that today. Or you can do them together. There's no penalty for doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I guess I kick us off first, right?
Yes, you do.
All right, rock and roll. So let's go ahead and get started. Like I said before, if you want to get my free tip of the week and be if you want to get an entry for the book, I have a box back there. Business card is best. If I have your card already, I don't need it again. First name, last name, and email address. Somebody left me their phone number. Thank you. I can't do that. I can't do anything with that. But anyway, maybe you want me to call you and have a date. I don't know. Okay, so what the heck is AppLocker, and how the heck are we going to use it? And then Alan's going to take over Bitlocker. Honestly, I thought this was good because we get the A's before the B's. I don't know if you noticed that, but I thought that was pretty clever. So, okay, AppLocker. What's its whole job in life? Well, actually, before we talk about its whole job in life, let's talk about what used to happen. In terms of this technology of putting the smack down on applications has existed since Windows XP. That's right, it's been there for a really long time. We have these applications that users can run. They can just download them off the intertubes, double-click on them, and start causing mayhem. And it doesn't, you might think to yourself, well, don't they have to install stuff? I'm going to bust that myth right out of the gate. I'll show you that during my demo. And second, there are a lot of applications that when you download them and double-click them, they immediately start running, right? There's no install required. They just kick off and do their nasty things, like WeatherBug is one of them and a bunch of other things. So long story short, built into XP has always been this way to put the smackdown on an application, prevent it from actually running so that you and your network are all protected. That's great. Now, the thing is that you can do this kind of smackdown in two ways. You can actually say, let Windows do what it does best, which is let everything run, but then say this is bad, and this is bad, and this is bad. That's perfectly fine. Or you can flip it over and say everything is bad, but this is good, and this is good, and this is good. Now, if you think about this for a second, the first way I described, well, it kind of sounds like the easy way to fix the problem. I'll walk over to WeatherBug and say no. I'll walk over to Evil App 6 and say no until Evil App 6.1 comes out. And now what? Now you are behind the 8 ball trying to keep getting it updated, your definitions updated. So the problem with software restriction policies in XP is that there was no great way to describe what should run. You could do that whitelisting stuff. You could, like I said, say everything is bad, and this is good, and this is good, and this is good. That actually existed. That wasn't the problem. The problem was there was no good tool set in order to help you define what was good. Does that make sense? Everybody on board what the problem is? All right. So, oops. I do want to be super clear. Software restriction policy lives on. All right? It's not somehow magically removed in Windows 7. It's still there. If you've got software restriction policy stuff all set up and working, it's going to keep on working on Windows 7. Until what? Turns out this is actually very tricky. Okay? Software restriction policy turns off when the first AppLocker rule is encountered. Let me say that again. You've got all of your software restriction policy stuff. It's all working. Everything's great. You turn on your first AppLocker rule, bam, it's like software restriction policy doesn't even exist on client machine number 17. Very important. Now, there is no direct migration path to AppLocker. You've already spent the quality time in software restriction policy. Everything's working great. Yeah, there's no magic transition to AppLocker wizard. Sorry, you have to recreate the wheel. Hopefully, not such a big deal. The other trick is that software restriction policy is still available for all versions of Windows 7. Yeah, that makes sense. It's available for XP and later. Why am I making a fine point about this? Well, because it turns out that AppLocker, if we go to the bottom here, is only available for the following Windows 7 editions. Wait a minute. The cheapy version, professional, it's not listed. That means you can't do what I'm going to talk about for 20 more minutes. If you need to leave, I understand. Right? So if you don't have Enterprise or Ultimate and you only have Professional, you can't do the magically delicious stuff I'm going to show you now. Right? I want to be super clear about that.
Who went to the Intune session? The Intune beta? Did you see that if you actually signed up for Intune, you qualify for an upgrade to Windows 7 Enterprise?
For $1.
That's MDOP on top of that. So it's I think it was $10 a month.
So there's a way to get there.
So, if you want to upgrade to Enterprise, there's maybe a cheaper way to do it.
Cool. So the target machine can be Windows 7 and Server 2008 R2, not XP. Gosh, why would Server 2008 R2 be listed as a client type? Because you might have a terminal server machine that you've got set up, and you want to make sure that whenever Johnny tries to double-click on WeatherBug, puts a smackdown on him, or whatever. Right? Same basic idea. Now, here's the good news. It's not such a major change that everything you know is wrong. It's not such a major change that you're going to have to relearn group policy in order to take advantage of this stuff. In fact, underneath the hood, it's called SRP v2. You'll actually see references to that inside the logs and things like that. There's both AD-based group policy and local group policy, but really the big win here, is that it gives you a toolkit for whitelisting. Okay? Remember, whitelisting says everything is bad, and this is good, and this is good, and this is good. Or under these conditions, this is good. Okay, a better toolkit for that sort of circumstance.
Can I just say, people outside, there are seats in here. All right, last session I did, people gave me a really bad review because they couldn't get in.
Because they couldn't get in.
Right.
That's not...
It's like, please come in, there are seats, we don't mind. Walk in, there are seats down here at the front, and spat it around.
If it sucks, you can just leave.
And then not give us a bad review.
No, actually, I'm okay with a bad review if it's
Be
really
creative.
Sucks.
Yeah, be constructive.
Yeah. No, they don't have to be constructive. I don't want to hear it at that point.
Constructive criticism. Yeah.
Okay, now's a good time for us to take a big deep breath, because this is the most important thing I'm going to teach you about AppLocker. So big deep breath with me. AppLocker's brain is always doing these three things. You can't change this. This is the way God wrote it. This is the deal. Law number one. If I say it's bad, it's bad. I say WeatherBug is bad, that's it, it's bad. I say it's good, it must be good. Okay, that sounds pretty good. It sounds kind of like NTFS style permission so far. What's the weird one? What's the curveball? It's law 3. If I don't say anything at all, it must be bad. Let me say that again. If I just turn AppLocker on and I let it do its little 3-law thing here, it's doing this in a loop, it's always looking. Okay, do I have anything about law number 1? No. Anything about law number 2? No. Anything about law number 3? I always am working on law number 3. If I just turn AppLocker on, what have I done? I've said everything is bad. You with me? So this means that I need to be very careful about turning AppLocker on in the right way where I don't blow my foot off. Because I don't know if you know, but there's this little application, we kind of use it every day. It's called Windows, and we need to make sure it runs. Okay? So we're going to have to make sure we do this correctly. Now, I don't know if anybody's an Asimov fan. I have a feeling this is roughly related to the 3 laws of robotics. They talk about that in iRobot, by the way.
That's a good movie.
Yeah. Okay. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this slide because I do want to get right to demos and get you going with this stuff. But the idea is that AppLocker has rule types. We're not going to get into all the rule types. But the idea is that there's executables, weatherbug.exe, good or bad. DLL rules. If there's a portion of the application, you can actually deny a portion of the application based on the DLL, provided you know which part that is. Windows installer rules. I want to allow these MSIs. That's good because maybe I want to provide a DVD to a branch office or something. And script rules. So the idea is I can allow PowerShell scripts to run, but deny other kinds of scripts to run if I want to. And then there are conditions. Allow Word when I'm in this user group. Aha. So everything is bad by default. But then I'm going to create conditions to open up the doors to allow my applications to work. Now you're probably thinking, oh gosh, wait a minute. I've got 5,000 applications and 10,000 computers, and it's going to take me a lot of work to figure out all the things and describe the things that are good. Hold on, we're going to come back to that. Let me put a thumbtack in your brain for now. That sounds really horrible, but you get the idea. I'm going to put a holding pin there for now. We'll come back to that automatic stuff later. Let's not worry too much about that. So you can do some very clever mixing and matching, but we'll get to that stuff in a second. So these are the 4 steps to AppLocker success. I highly recommend that if you're going to do AppLocker, you either pick up a copy of the book or print out the slides or whatever you need to do. Don't forget to do all the steps. That is how you get into trouble, blow your foot off, and then you're calling the mothership for help. Okay? So if you're going to do this at home or at work, try it in a test lab, make sure things are great, then roll it out. Okay? So the 4 steps to success start off with setting up the default rules. I would assume that most of us are not AppLocker experts. I highly recommend you turn on the default rules, and I'll explain why that's the case. That's why it's 4 steps to success. 2, add more rules. Highly recommended, not required. And then 3, leveraging the audit versus enforce mode. You can either tell it to actually do the smackdown or just report about what it would have smacked down. Why do you care? Because in the super advanced version of this stuff, you can actually take the event logs, figure out what would have, been smacked down, actually create, using PowerShell, additional rules. Oh, it gets very killer. We're not going to do any of that stuff. Then finally, you need to turn on the App ID service, and we're going to cover all that in excruciating detail, so stay tuned for that. So I'm not going to go over this anymore. We're going to write the demo and show you how this all kind of works and kicks in. All right. Oop, that's not you. That's you. I'm number 3. All right. So what we're going to do is let's just live dangerously. All right. I'm going to create a GPO here that links to the entire domain that will turn on AppLocker. Oh my God, turning on AppLocker for the whole domain? That sounds really bad. And it would be. It would be. But rule or success point number 4 says you need to manually or automatically turn on a service on the client, or else no magic happens at all. So even though in this demonstration I'm linking it to the whole domain, and man, that would be a big problem in the real world, even in the real world it's not a big problem. Because why? Because on the target machine, a service needs to be turned on. All right. So turn on AppLocker here. And I'm going to dive down under, as a computer side thing, under policies here, under Windows settings. Security stuff. All right, now here under application control policies, this is what we're after here. Now, you might wonder why there's only AppLocker under application control policies. I get the vibe that they may expand this or have the opportunity to expand application control policies to something else. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think that's why it's its own node underneath another node here. And again, we're not going to go into all this. Oh, you know what I forgot to show? I forgot my favorite part of this whole thing. I'll come back to that. Sorry, I forgot the best part about it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay, I'm logged on as some regular user guy here, okay? I bet you've never seen this before. So somebody showed me this trick and I fell out of my chair. Here's Firefox running as a regular user. That's the .exe. You would think that you would be smacked down to not be able to install, right? Of course, right. I'm going to press one magic key and it'll all be fine. Oops. That's right. Just clicking no. Oh, I didn't show why. What it's doing is it's installing to program data. Oh, crafty Firefox. Okay, so now, yep,
Sorry.
it's all right. It's fine. Yeah. So under eSales user 1, wherever the heck it is. Long story short,
it's there, it's installed.
It's there, it's installed, it runs. And, you know, that's showbiz, right? So you keep getting prompted, and you keep letting it run. So long story short is you think you've got a handle on this lockdown stuff, but then, uh-oh, it turns out that there's a lot of vulnerabilities, even running as a standard user. So let us go ahead and, I think we should probably put the smackdown on this Firefox thing. So let's go ahead and go to the executable rules here. Right-click. We're going to create the default rules over executable rules here. And in doing so here, I have 3 default rules. Let's kind of examine what these allow us to do. The first one says allow administrators to do whatever they want. I approve of that. 2, allow everyone to run this application, you might have heard of it, called Windows. I approve of that. The third rule, allow everyone to run anything inside program files. Maybe. If you're pretty sure you've got it secure, those directories secure, and only the right people are adding the right stuff, and your build from 1987 is still valid from that stuff in program files, then go for it. But you might want to fine-tune this. You might want to take that rule out and say, not everything in program files is good, only this is good, and this is good, and this is good. Does that make sense? You might want to fine-tune that guy. For now, we're not going to do that. We'll just leave it as is. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to turn on the electric fence, which lives right here. So you're going to turn on configured enforced rules and click apply. And as soon as you do that, you're 80% of the way there. But I do want to cover something else real fast. Click on advanced. You've got this enable the DLL rule collection. Now I need you to watch right there when I click apply. Ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1. See that? It added a new rule type called DLL rule type. Now the thing is that if you look at the warning you get, DLL rules will affect system performance. No, that's not true. Come on. We're all running like Pentium 12s with 16 gigs of RAM and crap now, right? So long story short, the warning that they give you about this is not the warning I would give you about this. The warning I would give you about this is when you turn on DLL rule collection, you better be darn sure you have the rules that say, I'm using WinWord. I need to have this DLL and this DLL and this DLL all whitelisted, because if you don't, in the middle of getting Clippy the clip art thing, Word will crash. So I would say that using DLL rules is a very advanced configuration step after you've already gotten the first layer down. Okay? So we're not going to cover that in any more detail than we just did. So we'll go ahead and click apply, and there goes DLL rule right there. All right, next up on the docket really is the final thing I need to do. So I'm going to go to my computer. Oh, actually, I've already done it. There's a service under My Computer Manage here, and I've already turned it on to make things go a little faster here. I've already got it running. Everything is good, hopefully. Yes, you can tell by my speed that everything is good. Okay, so under services here, just to prove a point here, I've got the application identity service, and it's turned on and will restart every time the computer turns on. What's that? You've got 5,000 machines. You need to turn this on for all 5,000. What are you going to do? Gosh, if only there was a session that Alan had covered in excruciating detail about the group policy preferences. You can use the group policy preferences, services item type, and say anytime I'm on a Windows 7 machine, turn on the service, and you're good to go. Okay? So you don't have to reach out and individually touch them if you don't want to. You probably do for your test lab. In the real world, you'll want to turn it on using group policy. Okay? So I've already done that. So let's check out some magic just to prove I'm not pulling a fast one on you here. There's Firefox. That puppy should run just fine. Yep, that's good. Yeah, that worked. I should be able to run Acrobat Reader. I'm just doing it. Just want to just get a baseline, make sure everything's working. Okay. Oh yeah, that's fun. No, don't want that. Okay, that's good there too. Got WinZip. Everything's good. Great. So now that I've established that everything is running, I'm now going to get the latest, greatest group policy settings, and let's see how our magic works. And at this point, let's do them in the same order, shall we? I'll first run Firefox. Boom. This program has been blocked by group policy. For more information, contact your system admin and tell him you're doing something evil. All right? So long story short, anything that isn't specifically noted by a rule type is going to be smacked down. Oh, how about Acrobat Reader? Let's check that out here. So let's go ahead and double-click that. And hey, wait, why does that work? Well, because that guy was installed correctly into a named location like C:\program files. Right? I have a rule that says program files are good. Now, remember, my advice said that you probably, when you get mature at this, you probably want to not allow everything in program files. So let's kind of go through that for a second. We'll delete this guy right there. We'll run GP update here. And now what I'm saying is nothing in program files is good. Right? I want to make sure we're all together on this one. I know it's after lunch. All right. I got to wait for the computer. Okay, there we go. Double-click Acrobat Reader, and boom! Now Acrobat Reader is smacked down. Gosh, if only there was a way to rename or to name Acrobat Reader on the list. Well, there's a multitude of ways of doing that. So under executable rule, I'm going to create a new rule. Now this gets dicey because I don't have a high enough resolution, so I'm just going to wing this and hope this works. So I'm going to allow everyone. And I'm going to use this thing called a publisher rule. There's also path and hash. I'll go to publisher last, I suppose. Hash says when I reach out and touch a file and I get its thumbprint, I can use that as something I know is a valid file. Path says it's good if I install it to this location. That's good too. Those are only so flexible. You know, my problem is I trust an application vendor, and I want to make sure that, that anything by that vendor is good to go, no matter where it's installed on the hard drive. That's what a publisher rule does. So I'm going to click on publisher rule here. I'm going to browse for a file. And on this machine, I'm going to browse for C:\program files, Adobe Reader here, and click on Acrobat Reader 32. And in doing so, check this out. I now have this automatically inserted product information stuff. Very cool. Because, you know, I like Adobe Acrobat Reader, but you know what? I want to make sure that only version 9.3 and above are allowed for this collection of users. Aha. Does that make sense? Or I can say, I want it so that, you know, any version of Acrobat Reader, based on the product name. Heck, I like Adobe so much, everything by Adobe is fine by me. I'm not necessarily going on record for all that. It was just a joke. Okay, so long story short, you get the general idea. I'll go ahead and say anything from Adobe Acrobat Reader is good, and you can say exceptions. So everything by Acrobat Reader is good except version 9.1.1. Oh my gosh, what a nightmare. You get the idea? Okay. Give it a name. I got to magically click the OK button. And there it is. So now everything by Adobe Acrobat Reader is good to go. And while it doesn't run now, the next time I run GP update here, excuse me, the next time I run Acrobat Reader, boom, I'm good to go. Now we can have the discussion about, gosh, that was great, Moskowitz. You were able to name exactly one application and it worked. How do we get to the promised land of naming a bunch of it? Oh.
Oh, that's the Adobe update.
That is Adobe update, but why did this, how did, oh, that works. That makes sense. That made sense. Acrobat Reader I allowed to run, but I didn't say that the update could run. That makes total sense, right? So, thank you, Mr. Computer, for the perfect segue. How do I automatically go to a computer, say, you are the perfect computer in every way? I have hand-loaded all the applications I need onto you. If only I could ruffle, I know, I'm embarrassing you, I know. You just happen to be sitting right there, and that's tough on you. So how do I ensure that I can go through all the files that I know are good and automatically make rules about that? Well, let's go ahead and see that. I have enough time for this, right?
Yep.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use, I would normally use the machine that's the most representative here. I'm not going to do that for this demo, but you'll get the idea. I'll right-click over executable rules. I'll automatically generate rules. Okay? Automatically generate rules here. And here is where I get to search through a path, and it'll help me automatically generate some rules. Now, it uses the certificate rules, publisher rules first, hash rules second, or path rules second. Your choice. I tend to leave the defaults the way they are. And what it's going to do, it's going to buzz through all this stuff and figure out, you're using Dog Food Maker. You're using Acrobat Reader. You're using all these apps, and create the rules. Look at that. I can review the rules that were analyzed, and the ones that are created. By the time it's done, boom, I got new rules. Wow, indeed. Okay. You want to know the downside? We're friends now, right? So I can tell you the downside, right? So you're using a Microsoft tool like SCCM or a third-party tool like, SpecOps Deploy, or you're using some other kind of software deployment management tool. You got to keep this puppy updated. Because just because you've installed it using your remote tool doesn't necessarily mean the user's going to be able to run it anymore. Okay? It just means that you have to be smart about your rules, right? Smart about where you're deploying and what your rules are. So, you can use an automated tool provided your rules are wide enough to allow the magic to happen. Right? So just be conscious of that. That's the connection point that doesn't exist. You have to kind of create it yourself. If you kind of want to create it yourself, then there's kind of a sort of kind of half kind of way using PowerShell. But that's definitely a different topic for a different day. All right? So with that in mind here, I've got some reference slides here for you to have fun when you're doing this yourself. We don't have to go into this in excruciating detail. Again, it's just for your reference here. The one thing I did want to cover as a kind of wrap-up, I didn't have that final slide there, darn it. There's one extra thing, which I do cover in excruciating detail in the book, is the ability for you to change the results of this page, not to text that you want. No, that's way... You couldn't possibly get that feature. But what you can get is a different dialog box that says More Info. And when you click on More Info, it goes to a web page of your choosing that describes the reason why the user's been bad. Does that make sense? So you're telling users, you try to run Dog Food Maker 12. That application is not supported, blah, blah, blah. All it is, it's a link to a web page, different UI, same basic idea. All right? So I've got a minute or two before I turn it over to the Bitlocker part of this talk. So raise your hand. If I don't see you, just call out. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, if the service stops, I have seen unexpected behavior. I've actually seen things continue on as if the service didn't stop at all. Sometimes a reboot will clear that out. Sometimes it won't. The way the service works is not traditionally it's on, it's working, it's off, it's broken. It seems to be like a bootstrap into the inner guts of stuff. So it's like a pump kind of thing between the group policy stuff and the actual guts that do the work. So it's a little bit tricky. I can't just give you a direct answer. So the unfortunate answer is if it's off and was never started, they're just changing gears over here. So if it's off and it was never started, and you got the latest, greatest group policy, you've never pushed the pump through. Okay? So that's a truism. The question is, if you get new data, now what happens? And so probably what happens is that the new stuff doesn't go in, but the old stuff stays in. So at least, maybe possibly until a reboot. And I'm not exactly sure. Number one, go ahead.
Is there a way to see what's been blocked?
Yes. So in the target machine's event log, in a very particular AppLocker operational log, you can see what rule did the smackdown. Now, don't forget, everything is smacked down by default by rule number 3. By law number 3, rather. And there's a special GUID about that law, and if you see that GUID, you've hit it. Great. Yep?
Are there any fisheries of publishers, say like Microsoft publishes under 9 different names?
Yeah, the question is there any pre-configured publisher stuff? And the answer is no. The idea is that they want you to walk over to a perfectly configured machine and do it yourself. The good news, however, and I didn't show it here, you could have it all perfect in a test lab, do the dirty work there, take that rule set, export it, and push it into a GPO by importing it. That's pretty cool, too. So it doesn't have to be on the network right now. You can export and import, which I like a lot. Last one, and then I'm going to turn it over to my buddy here. Yep.
If you've got a company that uses different publisher names in that publishing field,
Yes.
can you use like a starter?
The question is similar. The question is, if I wanted to use Microsoft Inc., Microsoft.com, Microsoft Software Corp, right? Because it's all Microsoft. Can I use like MicroStar and hope for the best and it'll just work? I don't think so. I don't think it'll accept inside that path because that's pulled in. Gosh, if you added the XML, I don't think so.
Even if you could, it would be a bad idea because if you had someone called Microsoftware, that would then match. So
Yeah.
you could leave yourself open there. You know, if you put M star, it means every company with the word starts with M.
I don't think it's possible anyway, so it's
No.
probably moot. Okay, great. Guys, thank you for your attention. I really, really appreciate it. I'll turn it over to Alan over here.
Cool. Okay. Sorry.
Yep, you're good to go.
BitLocker to go. What is BitLocker to go? Right. BitLocker to go is something that you use for your users. Who here has users in their organization? Right. Who here thinks they are a user in their organization? Okay, yeah. All right, let's pretend you're not, because if not, you might get offended. Hang on. There is no such thing as a dumb user, because that would imply there are smart ones. Okay? And that's what BitLocker to go is. It is something that you can deploy in your organization that helps you when your user loses their removable media. The USB hard drives, the USB memory sticks. You know, these things, they've all got 10 of these and they're cheap. So there's many more of those than there are internal hard drives to your computers. So BitLocker to go, it's an enterprise solution. So users sometimes, perhaps, forget passwords as well. So what do you do when they forget their password and they really need to get the data off that USB memory stick? You know, your boss comes in saying, you know, I'm about to do a presentation to the CEO. I really need to get it off this memory stick. I forgot the password. How are you going to get that off? Right. That's what we're going to learn. Bit of a quick recap first. BitLocker to go versus BitLocker. Okay. BitLocker to go utilizes the Trusted Platform module on your computer's motherboard. All right? It's about encrypting the operating system drive. It's about encrypting data partitions that are fixed to your computer, internal drives. Right? You can use a TPM, dongle, PIN number to unlock it. And the operating system requires a little system partition. I think it's like 100 meg now. It's really small. In Vista days, it was 1.5 gig, and you had that annoying drive letter. It's all invisible now, which is really nice in Windows 7. Right, requires a system partition. BitLocker to go is for your data partitions that are removable. You can use a password to unlock it. You can have it automatically unlock on a particular computer. So if you have a USB key that's encrypted, you can plug it in and you can type in a password. You can then tick a tick box that says always automatically unlock this drive when connected to this machine. That's pretty handy if you have a BitLocker to go encrypted laptop or desktop and you want to back it up to an external hard drive. Because if you back up an encrypted hard drive to an unencrypted hard drive, you just get the data off the unencrypted hard drive and away you go. All right? It sets up its own private key, all right, with the auto unlock. When you tick that, it's a much longer key, okay, than your standard password. It's not remembering your standard password. It's got a much longer key. And you can use smart cards to unlock it. All right? Also supports USB memory sticks that are formatted on fat partition. Very handy because most USB memory sticks now are still using FAT. And you can read the data off the BitLocker encrypted drive using Windows XP and Vista. Okay, when you set up the computer, set up the drive, it actually inserts a very small partition in there that's exactly the same size as this thing called the BitLocker to go reader. So when you plug it in, the USB key has the reader in there. It will run on Windows, and you'll be able to type your password in, and you'll get a little sandboxed window where you can copy the files out. You can't write to it. Okay, but users can get the information off there. So it's not as if they're, you know, oh, I can't access the information off this key anymore. There's a lot of group policy settings there. I'm just going to show you. This is where I'm just going to go into demo mode. So what I'm going to do is I have a laptop here. I have a USB memory stick here. I'm going to plug this in first, just to show it's not configured for BitLocker. And you can't see that. Could you? There we go. All right. Plugged in USB memory key. Yeah, there we go. There's a Windows Explorer, I can create new files here. All right, standard USB memory key. All right, pull that out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to my domain controller. I'm going to enable BitLocker. I'm going to enable a few options, and then I'm going to talk about them, because it actually takes a little bit to encrypt it, so I'll talk a little bit about it while it's encrypting. So, all the way over there, am I? Okay. So, BitLocker to go. You're configuring BitLocker to go on the workstation. All right, so we go in, we go to Policies, Admin Templates, not under there. BitLocker to go, drive encryption, removable. So this is the BitLocker to go group policy objects. Okay. Control the use of BitLocker to go on removable drives. Do you want to enable BitLocker or do you want to disable BitLocker? Okay. You know, if you don't set up, you know, if you just, you might want to disable BitLocker, right? If you don't want to have the hassle about worrying about some users just gone off and encrypted a drive, forgot the password, and they want, I want the information back off that file, and you say, well, sorry, I don't have the recovery key information for that. So you can disable BitLocker. We're not going to do that. Configure the use of smart cards. Like, you know, do you want smart cards? You know, require the use of smart cards if you've got PKI infrastructure in your environment, but you might want to disable that because it's just, again, maybe something you don't have consistent smart cards in your environment. So I'm going to disable that. Deny write access to removable drives that aren't protected by BitLocker. This is a really, really important setting. Users always do what you want them to do, don't they? Always. No. So, how do you encourage your users, force them to use BitLocker? Right, this is the setting. If I enable it, right, they can plug in any USB memory stick, and if it's not BitLocker to go encrypted, it will be read-only. So they can't put new information onto that drive. Okay? If the drive is encrypted, then no worries, write the files to that drive. Okay, so we're going to enable this. Also going to tick this one here. Do not allow write access to drives configured out in another organization. Remember that one? I'm going to come back, talk a little bit more about that. All right, allow access to BitLocker to go, protected media on data drives on earlier versions of Windows. Remember what I said before? Creates a little petition, puts a little reader application on that. If it's a fat formatted drive, this won't create that little petition and put the little BitLocker to go reader on the drive. So maybe you don't want that executable there. Interesting to note, if your machine requires that little executable needs to be updated and you plug it into a new machine, I noticed this when running the Service Pack 1 beta, you plug it in, the user get prompted to actually upgrade that little reader application.
Why do they do this? They have, it's called allow access to blah, 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 and then they have a checkbox there that you still have to turn on. Why didn't they just call the policy setting, do not install BitLocker to go on fat removable drives, and be done?
It's group policy logic. All right.
Just saying.
So, next setting. Configure the use of passwords. Right. By default, minimum is 8 characters. I'm pretty sure you can't go below 8 characters. But if you want to turn on complex passwords, you could do it this way. You could up the number here. 8 characters is enough for this demo. Choose how you want to use BitLocker protected, how you can recover them. Right, this is the setting you do to make sure that you can recover the information off this drive, right, once the user has forgotten, right, the password. Right. Now, allow data recovery agent. Right. Windows 2000 had an encrypted file system. Right. If you had certificate services installed, you had these users or accounts that would have the ability to recover files that have been encrypted. You can now do that with BitLocker to go. You can use a PKI infrastructure. Have one master recovery certificate, right? That'll allow you to use to recover every BitLocker to go encrypted drive in your entire organization. Okay, that's what that tick box is about. There's a lot of setup to do with that. I'm not going to go into that today, but you can do it. Okay, this one here, basically information. You know, what do you want to store? That just standard information for password recovery. Next one, emit recovery options from the BitLocker to go setup wizard. Do you want to allow the user to save a copy of the recovery key themselves? Right? they might want to be able to, oh, I've forgotten the password, that's okay, I printed it out somewhere, or I've got it saved to a USB memory stick. You might want to disable this if they think that they're going to print it out and put it in the recovery key in the laptop bag where the USB key is stored. Okay? You might not want them saving the recovery information because you don't know how they're going to handle that recovery information. I'm not going to untick that. Right? Save Bitlocker to go recovery information to the directory services. Save the recovery key into Active Directory. That's what that means. Okay? You want to back up the password and key packages. Yep, leave that tick. Leave that enabled. Do not enable until you can recovery until the information is stored. Right, I'm not going to encrypt the drive if I can't save the recovery information AD. Very useful if someone wants to start the encryption on a drive when they're at home and they're not VPN'd in. Okay, I'll say, sorry, I can't access AD. I can't save your recovery keys, so I'm not going to let you encrypt it just now. All right, if your VPN connection is up and running, yeah, it'll allow it through. So I'm going to hit OK there. All right. One other option I'm going to show you, Bitlocker to go drive encryption here. Provide a unique ID for your organisation. And what's this about? Right. There's a tick box before that says do not allow Bitlocker to go drives from outside your organisation. Right. Well, how does Windows know that that drive is from outside your organisation? So what you do in here is you enable this and you give yourself a unique ID. It can be very long, 260 characters long. You know, put something hard to guess there. All right? And that's my organisations field. If I have a partner organisations field, I can put in other identification fields in there, comma separated, and just keep adding them. So their USB keys will also work in my organisation. So it'll allow me to write to those drives.
Can I add something here?
Yes?
So don't forget, we're doing this at, I think you're doing it at an OU level, right? If you're doing just sales, don't forget about marketing and research and all those others. You might want to, you could completely segment out each of those organization units as a different identity, right? So maybe you don't want sales to know what marketing is doing. They pick up the USB key and, it's a different organization. Or maybe you do want to enable sharing. Make sure that when you set that particular policy key, that particular policy setting, that it's hitting the machines you want to hit. That's the key takeaway there. So it's a policy setting, it affects the machine. Make sure it hits all the machines that you want to be as dictated in the same organization, whatever that means to you, multiply linked to different OUs or maybe domain-wide.
Okay, so I'm just doing a policy refresh here on my laptop. Ding, ding, done. And I'm going to plug in my USB drive. All right, ignore the one in the background. I just
That's what happens when you
I know, I yank it out. All right, so this is what the user sees. You can't save files to this drive until you encrypt it. All right? Otherwise, don't encrypt this drive. I'll be able to make everything read-only. It'll just be like a read-only CD-ROM. All right? But I want to encrypt it. All right, now, I'm going to call someone up from the audience.
There's stairs over here. Please use them so that way we're safe and compliant.
All right.
With safety standards.
It's going to be one of two people. Whoever can grab this first can come up. Okay. Either Joe or Pip can come up and grab that. They can come up onto the stage. Come on.
Who wants to be volunteer?
No.
What's wrong with him?
Yeah, okay. Sorry, Joe, Pip. I met you on Twitter and everything, and I thought, I saw you two in the audience.
Let's give him a hand.
That's okay. But this guy volunteered first. That's okay. Cool. What I want you to do is type a password in. All right? And then I want you to forget that password. Okay?
What is this? Look at your card but don't remember it?
Yes. See this? Don't tell me what it is. I'm going to put it back in the deck. Okay. Ta-da! Cool. And I want you to type in a password.
Why don't you tell us what your whole magic trick should look like? Like, what's our expectation here?
So what I'm going to do, thank you, is now continue the encryption of this drive.
That's it. You survived.
You can go back to your chair now. Thank you for your participation.
Good job. Thanks. No. Hey, this is his demos, not mine.
Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to encrypt this drive. I'm going to quickly go through this because this takes 5 minutes. All right, see, this is the option here when I said you can omit the recovery option for the users. It would hide this. Notice some settings are managed by my administrator.
Save it to the USB drive you just encrypted?
Actually, I think it will actually give you a warning. I don't think it will.
What does it say?
It says, do not save here, save to another location, because you're about to encrypt that. Yeah, no, it is pretty intelligent that way. I like plan Bs, so I'm just going to save a copy of that. Are you ready? Yes, I am. So, what that's done now is the drive is starting to encrypt. Okay, hopefully it'll start at 1%. Cool. So what it's done, it's 128 meg USB drive. So it's going to encrypt fairly quickly.
Only the best.
Only
equipment.
the best. And it's got Xbox 360 on it. I got this the day the Xbox 360 came out.
Wait, you mean there's a whole Xbox 360 emulator on that stick?
Yeah, no. But, so, what it's done is it's now saved the recovery key information into Active Directory because it can communicate with Active Directory, and it started the encryption process. So, word of warning. I have encrypted a 1 terabyte USB 2 hard drive before. It took about 18 hours. Because USB 2 is slow, right? Normally on USB 2 devices, the limiting factor is USB 2. If you're on eSATA or USB 3, yes, there is a performance overhead on encrypting all the information that goes to the drive. You are doing AES encryption on this drive. I think, don't quote me on this, if you have an Intel Core i5 or Core i7, I haven't got one, so I haven't tested it. You might get a performance boost because the i5 and i7 have extended instruction set for performing AES encryption. Okay, so that's going off, that's encrypting. I'm going to say, someone time me for 3 minutes.
No, I can keep an eye on it.
Yeah, very good.
That's good.
Is it the size of the drive or the amount of data on it?
Size of the drive. Okay, so what I might show you now, while this is encrypting actually, is how do you recover the information out of group policy, out of Active Directory. So, who's ever run Active Directory users' computers? Yeah, everyone. Okay. Under here, find Bitlocker recovery password.
How did you make that magic happen, Alan?
Wow, well, it's not installed by default. Okay? So that is a snap-in to Active Directory users and computers. If you want to enable that on Windows Server 2008, you open up Server Manager, you go Add Features, Remote Server Admin Tools, Feature, Bitlocker to go, Drive Administrator Utilities. You want the password viewer. That installs the snap-in. Right, you just go in there, tick it, away it goes, it's installed. If you're on Windows 7 and you want this, you need to download and install the Remote Server Admin Tools, which give you all lots of goodness like the Group Policy Management Console, which we all know and love, don't we? Yes. Cool. And it also gives you this option. So on Windows 7, I might show you while it's still encrypting, how you actually add it. You go Control Panel, turn on or off features. So after I've installed the Remote Server Admin Tools, you then need to install the viewer, because the Remote Server Admin Tools kind of just lights up the option for you to install it. Somewhere here, feature. All right, there it is. All right, so that's how you get it on your clients. So it's gone off, it's encrypting. While it's still encrypting, I might quickly go through what was left on my...
Actually, I want to add something real fast.
Oh, you go for it.
So what Alan was just showing, I want to be super clear. I think he said it all perfect. I just want to rephrase something, which was the thing he just showed you on the client, that enable recovery password stuff, that's only if you, Mr. or Ms. Admin, is using a Windows 7 machine, and that is where your management console is. Does that make sense? You don't have to run around to Sally's and John's machine and Fred or whatever and do that step. That was only... Alan's got a new machine, Mr. Admin over here. He wants to have the GPMC and also this recovery password stuff he's going into. So it's not a required step on 10,000 machines, only 3.
Okay. Yep. Cool. Yeah. Okay, if you pull the key out, that would be bad. You can pause it, though. it's going to be like pulling a key out while you're writing new files anyway. If you pause it, pull it out, put it back in, it will resume encryption from where it left off. Okay, but the drive will then be in read-only mode. Okay, until that encryption is finished.
The only exception I think is system drives.
Yeah.
So you can
you can write
BitLocker a
this-
system drive,
Yeah.
reboot, and it keeps on
Just
trucking.
keeps encrypted.
Yeah, which is nice.
But if you gracefully pause it and pull it out, it'll stay read-only. A lot of the times I've seen it say, it'll stay read-only while it's encrypting, but I've actually been able to save files to it, so don't know about that. But, so just a quick thing about the password. Password, really easy to remember, is the weakest though, vulnerable to offline password dictionary attacks. All right. Auto-unlock uses a stronger key, like I said, but it's specific to that machine. So if I configure a drive to auto-unlock on machine A and I plug that USB drive into machine B, it won't auto-unlock. Okay? You need to type the password in there again and then tick that auto-unlock. And smart cards are by far and away the strongest way you can use to unlock those drives. I still haven't fixed this. Windows Server 2008 schema or later, I think 2003 R2 schema, but 2008 is definite, is the schema you need to store these Active Directory recovery keys in AD as an object. Okay, it extends the schema. All the DCs must be Windows Server 2003 SP1 or later. Okay, I'm just going to go back now because I've finished encrypting. Yeah. Okay, so now I've got my drive here. And it's unencrypted. Notice here they've got a little padlock here that looks like it's unlocked, so because it's unencrypted. So I'm going to remove that drive. I'm going to plug it back in. But I don't know the password, all right? Because someone down here typed the password in. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. So if you want to find out, all right, the password to recover, right? There's a very long ID that is unique to that device, okay? So rather than typing in the entire ID, it's pretty sure bet that the first 8 characters of that ID is going to be unique in your organization. It's probably some, I don't know, really random freak event if you get 2 with the same first 8 characters, which is here. It's this key here, all right? And if you want to recover it, I don't have the admin tools. I do have them installed. Sorry about this. I'm just going to open the admin tools, Active Directory users, computers. Open. Find Bitlocker recovery password. Please type in the 8 characters now. I hope I typed this right. 6, 3, B, D, 2, B, 7, 1. If I click search, it should find something.
Past remedial typing. Good job.
Yay! So it's found that key. All right, this is the full unique ID of that USB memory stick. Notice it's only the first 8 characters that it showed. If you're in advanced mode, then yes, you can see all of that. But this is the recovery password. Let's see how we go. Type the key. No, I did the first bit. And so,
The only downside is having to tell the user over the phone.
What is-
6,
yes.
3.
Repeat after me. All right, and then we go next. Did this last time too. I now have temporary access to the drive. Yay! Yes, you forgot your password, but I recovered the information for you. Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, so you've now got temporary access. If I pull that key out and plug it back in, you need to type the whole password in again. So what you can do is you can go in and you can change the password. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, something. And I can change the password of that drive. Okay? So there you go. I can access the drive. Continue without scanning. While it's in there, I've reset the password. Ta-da! I've now got access back to that information. Excellent. I can recover the information. But remember what I said before. I've got 4 minutes to go, so I can do this. Remember what I said before. I set myself up with a unique ID for my organisation. I said don't allow keys that are plugged in from outside my organisation. I have another key here, which is encrypted from outside the organisation. I'm going to plug it in. Okay, I'm going to type in the password. If I type it in properly.
Those little netbook keys, man. They're so small.
Yeah. I'm going to unlock it. It's going to go off. It's looking at the key. Right. It has unlocked it, but because it's saved with an ID that's outside my organisation, I'm back into read-only mode. Okay? That's what the user sees because it's enabled outside your organisation. Now, it would really suck to have to decrypt and re-encrypt that because that would be one way you could get the new ID on that key, especially if it's a 1 terabyte USB hard drive and it takes you 18 hours to decrypt it and another 18 hours to encrypt it. Well, luckily, oh look, and that's what it looks like when you have the requirement to update the reader. So it's actually saying, hey, I've detected the reader application on there. It's a little bit out of date. Do you want to update it? So I'm not going to update it. Yeah, if I've unencrypted it. Oh, I don't know.
Outside your org.
I don't know. That's a very good question. I don't have time to figure that one out, though. All right, so what do you do? There is a command line. Anything you want to do with Bitlocker to go and Bitlocker is this command called manage BDE. So what I want to do is set the identifier for this USB drive, which is currently mounted as E drive, to the one of the local organisation. Now I have the key for this, so it's going to let me do this. I've unencrypted it. So it's saying if I've decrypted the drive, then that's fine. That means I'm the owner of that drive, so I'm going to do it. I do that. It's now set the volume identification to Contoso, which is the idea that we gave it. All right, I'm just going to gracefully... No, not gracefully format it. Eject.
I don't think I've ever heard the term gracefully format. I think that's a new virtualism.
That's a new. And I'm going to type in, all right, unlock, and it's going to go, and it's going to unlock that drive, and I'm just going to have full read-write access to it. So manage BDE is the actual thing you can actually do. You can assign multiple passwords to a USB Bitlocker-enabled drive, and you can even assign multiple data recovery agents to a Bitlocker to-go drive, but use manage BDE to do that. All right.
Oops, sorry. I just
That's
lasted
okay.
a couple slides ahead. Is that all right?
So, yeah, that's fine. But where are we?
I don't know.
1?
Yeah, that's got to be.
So cross-organisation, you saw that, how that worked. You plug in something outside your organisation. There you go, that's what it looks like. Yeah, we did a demo. We did like recommendations. If you're going to deploy data recovery agents, get your PKI infrastructure out there first. All right, you don't want to deploy all this BitLocker stuff and then go, oh, now I want to turn it on. Okay, get your certificates right, get your organisation ID out there as soon as possible because, you know, at the end, when you say, okay, only allow drives within my organisation, all those users are going to go, my drive just turned read-only, and you're going to have to go to their machine and do that manage BDE command. All right, install the Bitlocker to go reader.
So this is our last session here in New Zealand. I enjoyed my time here in New Zealand tremendously, except for a 9-hour hospital stay. But I really did. I had a fantastic time. So I would love to come back, and if you would like to have us back, there's one definite way to do that, to fill out the evals. There's another great way, is I do public and private training courses. If you want to get smarter in this big group policy stuff, I do a 5-day intensive training and workshop. I would love to come to your organization to make that happen. If you want to drop off your business card for more information on the books, policy pack, or anything else, I do at gpanswers.com. We've got the magic box in the back. Again, if I already have your card, I already have your card. If I don't have it already, then I need it, or first name, last name, and email address. Thank you again for the phone number, but I don't need that specifically. That's it. You have any closing remarks?
I'm just going to say, everything you just saw here, I've got full how-tos on my website, grouppolicy.biz. All right, just blog post. I also have a 2-part series there on Bitlocker to go. One does everything that you just saw then, and the other part does it with data recovery agents, so using PKO infrastructure in your environment. So if you want more information, grouppolicy.biz. Thank you.
Thank you guys very, very much.